As many players know by now, I am a huge pawn advocate. I'm not going to delineate my experience with the game. I describe it on my YouTube and Twitch About pages. Suffice it to say, I've been playing since launch. I can't really remember a time I've played without pawns. It occurred to me that perhaps players didn't understand what I meant by time in grade or proficiency in my videos, and by the latter, I don't mean the augment proficiency. No, what I really meant was how long a pawn spends in a particular vocation. This isn't the same as how long a pawn is utilized in the game by the player. There are two aspects to time in grade and proficiency, but perhaps I'd better start with the way I train my pawns. For starters, my pawn stays with me for the entire journey, especially on that first playthrough where I'm on foot for most of it. I'll talk about how I train my alt pawns later, but for now, I'm talking about that very first account. I pick up many of the notice board quests in the opening area, although not many of the encampment notice board quests. I also pick up the opening main story quests, but don't do any of them until I defeat the Cyclops and create my pawn. At this point, I return to Cassius and do all the main quests I've picked up so that my pawn learns its way around that area as well as gains quest knowledge. Kicking the Ox brings me to Grand Soren, and from there I usually pick up the available main story quests as well as some inn, alehouse, and pawn guild quests. I may or may not do the From a Different Sky quest located on the notice board in the lower part of the pawn guild. There are 100 of them. They're listed in numerical order, and some of them are quite a puzzle, in that areas can get closed off from the player once they've defeated the dragon. The badges are located throughout Grancis. I try to open up all of the map, literally walking everywhere. I travel by day and by night, killing everything in sight. Other quests found in the alehouse or pawn guild compels me either to travel far and wide or kill X amount of enemies, which helps with area and bestiary knowledge. I don't do anything special except play the game. In the past, I used several pawn hiring sites such as GameFAQs and Sony's Communities to advertise my pawn or pawns. Now I use the pawn hiring hall run by the DDC Discord group, and Kara's in charge of that, Karathrax. This helps more than players realize. The enemies your pawn helped dispatch while with another player goes towards their overall kill count, thus mitigating just how many of the really rare enemies like Golden Knights, Pyrosaurians, and even the dragon a player has to kill, let alone use specific strats for. If I pick up knowledge scrolls and I don't go out of my way to look for them, I will use them, but I usually save the Volume 3 versions as a last resort. Sometimes I don't even have to use them at all, thanks to my fellow players hiring my pawns. For post-dragon, I will go to every room in the Everfall. One strategy I do use is to rest often, especially after I change my Arisen or pawn's vocation and or loadout. This means my latest updated version of the pawn is always available for others to see and use if they're interested. I try to get their equipment Dragon Forged. So I've learned a thing or two over time, and that was if I advanced the storyline X far, then went to Bitter Black and advanced that area as far as I was able, given the equipment I had, depending on the level I was at, I could economize my gameplay, earn huge rewards, gain experience and discipline points, which I could put back into my Arisen and pawn. But my pawn always received the best gear before my Arisen did. This increased the chances my pawn would get hired and learn even more area, quest, and bestiary knowledge. Additionally, other players probably aren't playing the same vocation as I am or using the skills I utilize. And therefore, I could enjoy what I was playing as, knowing I wouldn't have to grind levels as a vocation I don't enjoy playing very much. After all, it's still a game. In return, I'd do the same for them. That's how I handled my main pawn. Alt pawns are done a little differently. For starters, I'm able to give them rings, armor, and weapons that increase their survivability. The same goes for any friends who have lower level pawns. And I go to BBI much, much sooner. In other words, right as soon as I create my pawn. Secondly, I haul my alt pawn on my main account to all the sites that have special markers on the map. Go to the various areas on the roads by day and by night and use any spare scrolls I have to further their bestiary knowledge. There's no getting around the kill count, however, and every enemy we can dispatch is one less my alt account must handle. This doesn't mean I don't ask for help, 'cause I do. Did I silence those wolves or not on that alt account? I'll think I did, and then it turns out I missed that flag, especially since I have 7 pawns on PC, 6 on PS4, and 3 on the Nintendo Switch. Asking other players for help means I don't have to be a one-man army. I am methodical in my own way, albeit rather organically. As someone else noted, just play the game, and that is how I've tackled getting my pawns area, quest, and bestiary knowledge. It is easier, but sometimes harder, as I mentioned before, to accomplish those goals with each new pawn I create. Additionally, I don't use multiple saves, and instead I have multiple accounts, so that simplifies things in some ways, and also how I think and play enormously. As for time and grade, once I decide on what the vocation I want my pawn to be by level 200, then I work at accomplishing that goal too. I try to use logical choices, i.e. fighter to warrior to ranger, for instance, or mage to sorcerer to mage, and then I just keep them at that position. They'll get better the longer they play. Here's what I don't do. I don't play as the same vocation as my pawn to train them, unless it's a vocation I want to play at that time, but not specifically to train them. I don't take daggers away from strider or ranger pawns. I don't give pawn throwables. I don't hire guardian or nexus pawns. I do give my pawn augments that are specific or helpful to their vocation. I do give them healing items. I do hire a variety of pawns for my party, not all the same inclination or vocation. I do climb enemies. I have yet to see hard, compelling evidence that suggests that not climbing as an Arisen prevents the pawn not climbing, especially given what we know about the code issues on BBI, as well as how enemies affect the pawn inclinations. I do give pawns special arrows. If the threat is great enough, they will use them. And that's how I train my pawns. It's simple, just not always easy. But the best part is I get to play whatever vocation I want to along the way, enjoy the game, and I've done it this way for 10 years. I am interested in the strats you have for training your pawn. Please comment below. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to give a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos. Thanks for watching.